Welcome back to Cyber Defense TV. I'm your host, Gary Milewski, and the publisher of Cyber Defense Magazine. I have an incredible special guest sitting in the hot seat today. Nicola Whiting is the Chief Strategy Officer, CSO, but Chief Strategy Officer, of one of my favorite companies that does amazing things for cybersecurity, Titania. Nicola, welcome.
Hello, thank you.
Tell us what's going on at Titania. I know you have some great U.S. government customers. It all started with Nipper Studio.
Yeah,
and then
it all started with a guy in a bedroom, like so many great stories do.
Tell me about that guy in a bedroom.
So he's the best man I've ever known. I eventually married him, but he started out as a Czech team leader, as a penetration tester. And one of the jobs that he had to do was look at devices in detail, real granular detail. It's kind of painful and time-consuming, and it needs a lot of expertise. And essentially, if you're asked to do 50 or 60 of those devices, you're talking about a month of work, or maybe more, and all the reporting, and it's a point in time. So what he decided to do was automate that. So to get all that ability into something that anybody could run, and that's how the product started. And our first clients were pen testers just like us, and they loved it. And then they introduced it to end users, essentially the people that they just discovered problems with, and they were like, "Hey, what's that? What's just pulled my trousers down?" And then they started using it. So we've really grown through word of mouth. We're great techies and really bad salespeople.
So how many kinds of devices in my intranet, which might be complex, are you going to tell me are a mess right now?
So we actually have the biggest device coverage of anybody in the industry. I think it's about 125, 130 devices at the moment, all the major industry players, and a few really specialist ones that the military asked us to take care of, like rugged and things. We also have a product called Pause Studio, which was down to people saying, well, this is great, but I've also got workstations and servers, and I want that kind of granularity there too. So we also do those. In fact, the only thing we don't really cover are things like mobiles.
So Pause Studio is going to help determine that there's accidental backdoors or misconfigurations in my servers and applications even?
Yeah, so applications relatively new. Again, came from a request from our military customers. They were having some things that they were still having to do manually around SQL databases. Mm-hmm. So we made the ability for them to automate that too to the STIG guidelines, because that's what they want to baseline it against. And we were the first in the world to do that. But kind of a bit like the Wright brothers, with this sort of guys in the bike shop that just keep making stuff first and kind of going, here you go, that's what you wanted. So we've got some really loyal customers, and we just really love working with them because they tell us what we want and we just build it. And then we also sometimes surprise them with sort of, hey, we built this too because we think this is what you might want next. Not just a faster horse, but going towards the full automobile.
Well, beyond, the Air Force, the Navy, whoever, the U.S. government, can a small to medium-sized enterprise use your solutions?
Yeah, so we actually take that really complex stuff that a pen tester does in his head, and we make it into some reasonably easy to push buttons. We actually took some of our pro technology and for the supply chain made it into a free tool with literally 4 big green buttons. Obviously, it's not as detailed, but it just does 21 checks. And essentially, yes, much less technical people can use it. And that's really good because there's a lot of people coming out of universities. They may be doing some of the courses, but they've got knowledge gaps. They don't have detailed understanding of specific devices, and that can cause problems. But some of this stuff is just built in. It isn't even in the configuration. It's just a standard that you have to know, and all that stuff will be built into how the tool works.
There's a lot of acronyms out there, by the way. Let me just guess if I'm correct. So the STIGs, these are Security Technical Information Guides? Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. And these are really checklists. Do it this way and you will harden Windows, or your Cisco switch, your 3260 or whatever the numbers out there today needs to be configured this way so that it doesn't have backdoors for hackers. Yeah. If I had your, let's say, Nipper Studio, and I was at TJ Maxx before the breach, the biggest breach in history of credit cards, not the Yahoo breach, but 100 million credit cards stolen. It happened to be that there was a Cisco wireless router, and the soup Nazi hacker, a kid from Miami, sitting in the parking lot, and he found a vulnerability in that wireless router or router, and he got in, and then he wormed his way in, and he found a SQL server that also had a vulnerability, and he exploited that as well. So one exploit to the next exploit, and he's behind the firewall, eavesdropping, collecting data, and then exfiltrating it out. Happened to be 100 million credit cards. Big breach. I wonder who to blame. Is it Cisco? Is it Microsoft with SQL? Or is it the hacker himself? Is it TJ Maxx, right? The real question, though, is if they had Nipper Studio and maybe even Pause, would they know the two issues that really caused the whole thing? One, that the wireless router is misconfigured, and two, that there's a problem with Microsoft SQL Server.
So probably. It depends upon the exact thing. But yeah, I mean, so S.E. Miller, the deputy CISO of DoD, says what keeps her up at night is cyber hygiene. And our own NCSC pretty much says the same thing. Ian Levy says that there's going to be a big breach, and it's probably, when investigated, going to be down to something simple. So all this stuff isn't really that complicated, and pen testers have made a living for a long time by the domino effect, getting in one place, using those credentials to find something else, or using conflicting rules and all that kind of stuff. I think as to whose faults things like that are, I really do feel like the defenders of networks are feeling like they're holding back the ocean with their fingers. And a lot of tools out there at the moment are just making more ocean. What they're not doing is really giving you any answers. They're not helping you build a dam. And some of the tools out there are so inaccurate that you feel like you've built a dam, but actually it's still got holes in it, and it's leaking. False positives in SIEM systems, I'm not even going to go into those, but there's a lot of them.
Well, they claim AI is going to solve that.
Yeah, so
it's a lot of noise. It's very noisy out there.
If you have bad decisions, I think even with AI, you tend to make bad decisions, like that, the bad data, bad decisions.
We failed more intelligently.
Yeah,
exactly.
More intelligently. So one of the things that we're trying to do now, so CIS, very well regarded benchmark, non-military. We kind of partner with them because they externally validate what we do, and every single device that we audit to their standard, they have validated us at 100% accurate because we make sure we are, and that's how we feel about all of our stuff. If you're trying to shoot for the moon, just getting almost to it and letting people die in space
not a good thing.
Isn't the answer. And when people are trying to defend their networks, any hole isn't good. Now, we make it a lot easier for people because we automate that, so they don't have to take all those man hours. But also, we give them the mitigation output. So, even command line fixes. So all they've got to do is take that and place it into the configuration.
Cut, paste, and go.
Yeah.
So you talked about digital hygiene.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, as you say, they're so busy in their job, and now they buy the SIEM or the SIM, and it gives them all these alerts. It makes them even more busy.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop the breaches. The breaches continue to escalate. We're into today, according to privacyrights.org, I believe over 10 billion records have been stolen. Now we've got GDPR hitting the globe. It's hitting the globe. It's not, it's not just the EU, UK. GDPR scared everyone. Then what do? Their reaction, I'll just pop up a privacy thing. I think it's a DOS of my email because I have so many I can't even read the real emails anymore. How are we going to comply with GDPR? Does it start with hygiene?
I think hygiene is a key thing, but I think most of it is consistency of hygiene. It's easy to be compliant once a year that the guy comes around to check it, but actually it's compliant 24/7, 365, every day, all day, every system that you actually need to be if you're going to. When some kid in a bedroom using a tool that they downloaded on the internet uses the massive automation that is available out there for nefarious purposes against you. Because essentially what we are is in a seesaw at the moment, a seesaw of automation, that we're on the wrong side. because what you've got is a few very clever people on the opposing team who then create a load of tools that are available for a tenner. And then they're downloaded by people who aren't actually always that talented, but all they have to do is push a button.
And they have time on their side.
And they've got time.
Right? Because they could spend weeks or months attacking one organization that IT staff is too busy fighting fires.
Yeah.
Will Nipper Studio and Pause give us automation every day and, not create a lot of noise and say, okay, you really forgot to fix this, or there was a new patch and it caused this problem, fix this?
So we see ourselves as a vital component in the whole solution. When Kennedy said, we want to send a man to the moon, he didn't have all the answers and he didn't have all the technology. I actually think we're pretty lucky in that all the technology lives in the room when you go to any major show.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is, when you had the best launch provider, what they didn't do is, hey, you know what, I can get a bit of extra revenue if I buy that rocket system over there, and I just sandwich that to my launch pad, and then I can get a bit of extra revenue if I sell fuel too. And that's what our industry sometimes looks like. Mm-hmm. Everybody is trying to claim they're experts in everything. Mm-hmm. Whereas most organizations are just really, really good at one or two key things. Mm-hmm. So, there's a combination of things. Some of it is, maybe having to put together your best of breed solution and create something new that doesn't yet exist. But I think for anything to work, if we're going to go to autonomous self-healing networks, things that can defend themselves, that can free some of our cyber generals up for offensive work, or building a business, or creating a new generation of technology that's going to move mankind forward, they can't be sitting there filling cyber sandbags. They can't. We have to get the automation seesaw onto our side. And although AI is brilliant, if it's using inaccurate, false information, it's going to have to work too hard. We're filling our SIEM systems with junk. It's like finding a snowflake in a snowstorm, or listening for a whisper in a rock concert, that one thing that the guy in the bedroom is just going to take advantage of, but is a stupid, simple thing that shouldn't be there. And that's what we're working on. We've got accuracy, we've got output, but it's not just us. There's going to be the monitoring solutions, the scanning solutions.
So you still need them all.
Yeah.
But Titania is going to level the playing field and help me have the hygiene that I should have had from the beginning,
yes,
because it is a complex intranet that I have to manage.
If I'm going to make autonomous decisions, I want 100% accuracy on the data I'm making that decision on.
Sounds great. So to me, root cause analysis, I want to clean up and set a level playing field in my organization, usually behind my firewall, although I guess with what you're doing with Pause, it can even go out into the cloud to deal with my cloud apps and my SQL that's running on a cloud server.
Yeah, and in fact, we, because of the way our technology works, it can work on configurations, it can go out and get that data. We're quite unique in that we can actually work in the cloud, but we can also work completely offline in secret networks. So you can amalgamate everything everywhere with the same kind of accuracy.
That's great. This is amazing. And you guys are going to continue to innovate.
Yeah, that's what we love doing.
Love it.
Bunch of nerds in a box.
Excellent. So, well, thank you so much for this interview. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate kind of the insights of how the company started and where it's headed. And you should go to titania.com. Make sure you are using their tools. Keep an eye on them. Stay on top, because they will keep you one step ahead of the mess by getting ahead on configuration management on your intranet that should have good hygiene. So thank you, and come back again to Cyber Defense TV for another exciting episode.